as it relates to the things, like at some point your expectations and comparisons to other things have to weigh out versus what the intentions are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we had a video talking about Fast and Furious, and that, and some of the flaws within that franchise. But if we're being objective and speaking on this from a pure standpoint, the reason why Fast and Furious is still profitable 20 years later is because they don't give a fuck about the expectations. They know what type of movies they're looking to make each time they put it out, right?
Right. Yep.
When they were looking at the original trilogy, or when we look at Fast and Furious, when they were trying to go for, the testosterone fueled, 90s aesthetic, cop serious type of filmmaking, critically, those early Fast and, like, the original Fast and Furious is probably, if I had to guess, critically, maybe the least favorite out of every movie they've ever made, because maybe it took itself a little bit too seriously, right?
Hmm.
Too Fast, Too Furious was a good movie in terms of what we're looking at. All Too Fast and Too
Oh yeah.
Furious really was Bad Boys 2 with a PG-13 rating. That's all it was.
Yeah.
That's really all it was. Because
Right.
every Bad Boys 2 was the hottest thing on the block. Like, Bad Boys 2 is still probably one of the best action movies ever made, but we're not ready for that conversation right now.
No. Not yet.
but, but digress, right?
Hmm.
But as post Fast Five, as the plots to those movies became less important and the focus became the set pieces and the visual spectacle of everything, I think the critical acclaim mattered less as it became clearer that that's what they were looking to do. You see what I'm saying? Like, people wouldn't still be fucking. There would be no such thing as a Fast and Furious 9 if the focus was to try to make good quality action movies. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so at some point, we really have to recognize and understand what the expectations are. These are junk food movies after a certain point in time. Like, I mean, Martin Scorsese used a different term that I'm not gonna repeat because I'm not qualified to do that. But, if I'm hungry and I go to McDonald's, I'm gonna get full off of that Big Mac and French fries the same way that I'll get full off of baked chicken and collard greens, even though the baked chicken and collard greens might be better for my health.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? Tenet is always going to be a better movie than Wonder Woman 1984. But
Right.
if I'm equally entertained watching Wonder Woman 1984 as I am watching Tenet, then, I'm not going to say the conversation doesn't matter, but my argument becomes a little less valid. It slightly becomes less validated. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, man. I look. With 1984, I like I said before, it's not. I would say the perfect sentence for me about it is that it's flawed but enjoyable. And I feel like if you didn't watch the first movie, the Steve Trevor Diana moments definitely wouldn't have hit hard for you.
Yo, all right. So,
Definitely would have been like, this is filler. And it would have been cute for the first 5 minutes, but after 30, you'd been like, are we serious here? Is this a rom com? Or like, you wouldn't have had it wouldn't have held your attention span at all if you didn't watch the first Wonder Woman movie.
what are your thoughts on the kind of role reversal between?
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously in the first movie, he was the one that introduced Diana to the world that he lived in, and in this movie, she introduced him to the world that she was living in. Like, I kind of like that contrast. It felt a little bit more natural with her guiding him through it as it did in the first movie. You know what I'm saying? He didn't come like, okay, did the character of Steve Trevor come off more likable in 1984 or in the original movie?
I guess more likable in this one because he wasn't on his mission. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess to me, in my opinion, he seemed more, I guess, humanized because he was vulnerable. So he seemed like more of a he because he wasn't a captain, because he wasn't an officer, and he wasn't in war. I think that he seemed a little bit more of a just kind of more of a normal guy. I mean, he had his girlfriend's a freaking goddess, but he's still punching dudes like he's Indiana Jones and still, in gunfights doing hand to hand combat, trying to help out his girl who's 100,000 times. He was basically Krillin to Goku, in that circumstance. Like he was doing his best, he was doing the best
Right.
that he could. So he showed heart in the fact that, yeah, I don't have superpowers, but, I'm going to drive the vehicle. She's in trouble. Let me see if I can knock this guy out the way so she can do whatever. So he came up with the assist. He played his role fine. He had no complaints. He had no feeling of like, I'm a captain and I'm the man. Like it wasn't about that anymore, without that wartime setting per se. So I think
I
he was a
like
little
that.
bit more likable in this film than the first one, but only because it was circumstantial to the setting that he was in, and we got more time with him. You know what I'm saying?
And that can't go by without being noted. I think that is definitely an important part of the overall story because I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Like when I watched the first movie, bro, I ain't even gonna lie to you. Like
uh,
the only man, he was the least interesting character in that first movie, in my opinion. He was the least interesting character because you knew he was the guy who was going to be her tour guide, but kind of by
right,
default, by her or by him being the first human male that she interacted with, you knew he was going to be the love interest
right.
without necessarily earning that spot the way that you would like to have seen him earn that spot. I think with him being the guy that was a little bit more out of place, you got the opportunity to see him earn the love that she was giving him as opposed to it being a little bit more forced, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right, right. You see the reason why, she showed him that love, like you said, yeah.
So overall, I mean, with everything that we mentioned here, this is somewhere along the lines of being, I'm going to say a decent movie. This isn't the worst movie I've ever seen before. And at the same time, yes, I've seen better superhero movies than this. But if we're being honest, and there's another conversation that we had about sequels, this fits in the category of the type of sequels to movies that I like to see. I like seeing continuations of prior stories that feature the same characters, but not necessarily the same themes and the same outlines and
Hmm.
everything like that. I'm leaning more towards this being a good sequel than being a bad sequel. Yes, this is not a perfect movie at all. There are a lot of other movies. I will definitely be rewatching Captain America Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and The Dark Knight and movies like that and Back to the Future Part 2 and T2 and you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? All of these there's other sequels that I'll be going back to before I go back to this one, but at some point I'll definitely circle back to watch Wonder Woman 1984 because they got more right than what they got wrong. At this point in time, all I care about when I watch a movie, I just want to know did they get it right more than they got it wrong. So in this instance, I feel as though they got more right than what they got wrong. They just got to be a little bit careful with some of these run times. And also, the overall theme of this movie is that you can't cheat your way to the finish line. They might have been a little
Mm-hmm.
bit heavy-handed with trying to tell us that, but that was the theme of the movie. You can't cheat your way to the finish line. On this particular topic, what does Wonder Woman look like post Snyder Cut?
Post Snyder Cut. Whew, man, Wonder Woman post Snyder Cut. I would still say she's still the main frontier for this DCU. I'm gonna say it. I still think she's gonna come out of that film as that premier character, the one that landed the best post Snyder Cut. He's got 4 hours to work with. I still think she's gonna be on top, man. I still think, despite 84, she's definitely
Mm-hmm.
still in a better position than Ben Affleck. She's definitely still better in position than Ezra Miller as the Flash
Yep.
currently, as we speak right now. She's
Right.
definitely in a better spot than Henry Cavill. The only one
Mm-hmm.
who's might be up there would be Jason Momoa. That'd be the only
Mm-hmm.
other actor who says, like, okay, that those two are competing to be the face of the DCEU. I say she's still number one, despite the criticisms, despite, I mean, and people are drawing these reactions because I guess, it's trendy, but also they love the character a lot. And it means whatever emotion that it is, it just shows that even if it's negative, it shows that you care about it a lot. You can't have 1,000 videos about Kathleen Kennedy and The Last Jedi. If even if you're doing for monetary gain, you have to care about it to come up with the shit that you're saying. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right. Right.
you have to
There
really
has to be
deeply
an
be invested.
investment.
Right. You have to be invested in it to even make that kind of content and have that kind of reaction. So you have these kind of negative reactions, but it is from an investment. Some of it is from an investment, some of it is from monetary gain and joining in the clique and the crowd or
So
whatever. But I'm gonna give this film, like I said before, flawed but enjoyable. For me, this is my original score was an 8 out of 10 coming out the theater. I'm still gonna keep it 8 out of 10 because I personally enjoyed some of the elements of this. I'm gonna go see it again in theaters in IMAX.
oh,
The
bro,
visuals are really sick, man.
I'm
Like,
very glad that you mentioned that as well. Keep going, man. We're gonna address that here in a second.
I mean, the visuals were sick, man. That action sequence in Egypt was phenomenal. Like, it
It
had
was great.
tension, it had drama. There were stakes. She could get hurt. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, she flew through the air. She had some Spider-Man web sling. Okay, cool. Like, it's not her shtick, but they switched up the action. I know people complain about where was her sword and shield. Look, Wonder
Fuck
Woman
it.
ain't stabbing. She ain't stabbing freaking robbers at the mall, man. She's not cutting off. Like, that's war, bro. Like, that was do or die. This is a different
Right.
setting. She's not gonna
Mm-hmm.
freaking slice off. She's not decapitating motherfuckers on the streets of DC. It
No,
ain't that serious.
not at all. And
It ain't that serious.
so speaking of the Snyder cut as well,
Uh,
right?
uh,
So even though it's the same actress portraying the character, right? Do
right.
you feel as though with this sequel kind of establishing her being able to fly and also introducing the invisible jet, where do we decide to make the separation between the version of the character in Batman vs Superman and Justice League and in these two movies? Because I have a hard time imagining that we see her ability to fly manifesting itself in the Snyder Cut. Because I always knew she could fly. You always knew that she was able to fly. And I'm
Right.
sure that there were some questions for you, because I definitely had some questions. They're like, hey, she knows how to fly. Why isn't she flying? Why isn't she able to fly in, Batman vs. Superman and in, the first Wonder Woman as well as in Justice League, right? So
Right.
do we feel as though, are we comfortable at this point in time with acknowledging that these are two different characters here?
Man, Marvel this shit would never go down to Marvel. But it's not gonna take it away from me too much if she doesn't fly in the Snyder cut. I mean, obviously they can go back and do some post. I mean, at this point, that shit should be well done. Gal Gadot's not flying over to some green screens to do some extra shots, whatever. It's not gonna take it away unless it involves the story. Like there's a mother box being flown away, and Superman goes and grabs it, or Batman is in his Batmobile, his bat plane or whatever, and he goes and flies and and Wonder Woman's sitting there looking at it from the sky. Like then it's like, ah, shit. Like if it's from a storyline point of view, it doesn't make sense. Like there's an actual plot point where only heroes that can fly can get something she doesn't. Then that kind of becomes a problem. But if it's not really a major issue in the story, I think it's you can slide away and get away with it. I still see them as one and the same, but it's trending on that line. I'm not viewing them as like, okay, this is alternate Diana, and then this is, I still view them as one and the same still. So depending on how Snyder fucks it up, or if he corrects some things, we'll see. I hate to be negative, but we'll just see. We'll see.
But with that being said, though, you do have to keep in mind that the first Wonder Woman movie is literally a flashback of her reminiscing after receiving a letter from Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I'm saying? I would be very surprised if, for whatever it is that they're going to do with that character post the Snyder Cut, there will be no references to any of that going forward. Zero. There will be no references whatsoever to anything that preceded the Snyder Cut. Like the Snyder Cut only is happening because of XYZ, you know what I'm saying, behind the scene podcast, subscribe. But you know what I'm saying? But it goes without saying that I think after we exercise that 4-hour demon on HBO Max at some point this year, we're not going to address that anymore. Or if it is ever addressed, it's not going to be in a way that's meant to mean anything. So, at this point in time, I think Patty Jenkins, Miss Jenkins and Gal Gadot, they want to get out of this as clean as possible, and this was the first step in doing that. I mean, shit. At this point, Wonder Woman 3 might fuck around and be set in the 1990s, bro. You might get Wonder Woman 98 after this point. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh, she gonna wear the black coat with the leggings and shit. Oh man, the biker jacket.
Bro, like at this point in time, bro, imagine Wonder Woman 2K.
Yo, that Wonder Woman 2K. Oh shit, who would be the villain?
I don't know. I have no idea.
They literally have the freedom to do, I mean, whatever they kind of want, man. Like post Snyder Cut, the gloves are off, creativity wise, creatively. Right. You can go wherever.
And the flight scene, like, I don't care. It might have been fan service, whatever, but that was one of my favorite parts of that movie. Seeing Wonder Woman actually get to fly was fire. Because
phenomenal.
I'm watching it with my wife, and my wife doesn't care about none of this shit. I've been telling my wife that Wonder Woman could fly since before we even knew there was a Wonder Woman movie in the works. You know what I'm saying? So being able to see that live action was pretty dope. But long story short, Wonder Woman 1984 was definitely not the worst movie I've ever seen. And it wasn't the best movie I've ever seen. They did what it was that they needed to do. And I still want to see what they can do with that character. And I'm very glad that the Linda Carter cameo was not wasted for Flashpoint.
In terms of the controversy of the body swap of Steve Trevor with the unknown man, I'm going to just refer to another 80s movie that happened. There's a
Mm-hmm.
reason why Peter Venkman in Ghostbusters turned down Dana Barrett when she was Zool. Where the gatekeeper wanted to get some from the keymaster, and Dr. Venkman said, I never get involved with possessed people.
Exact quote, by the way.
Exact quote. I never get involved with possessed people.
Uh-huh.
So I understand where she was coming from a little bit. There was a lot of movie homages, some kind of black and white movie Patty Jenkins did with this reference of Steve Trevor being another person's body. I think she might have gone a little bit too, might have overindulged in the whole movie homages, and she made the film she wanted, and she kind of, I think, got in the bag with Easter eggs to film directors or
Right.
to studio, film aficionados from old school Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? Because it did have that old school Hollywood feel to the film in terms of the love scenes and the romance. Like if this was 2014, this was made in like 2014, 2016, that whole romance between the two of them in 84 would have been a montage.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been a 2 minute montage and left at that. On to the
Awesome.
next action sequence.
Right, right. Like on yeah, yeah, I agree.
And I know some people were like, she was very unheroic for not rebuking her wish that Steve made the initial move to say, hey, we got to end this.
No, no, no. But what? She was being selfish?
She was being selfish. She was not being heroic because she wouldn't let go of Steve, even at the risk of the world going to hell. She still
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to. She still was trying to get it done without losing him.
Right.
And right, and to that, I would say to you, in Christopher Nolan's series, when Batman had the choice between saving Harvey Dent and Rachel, who did he go for? I'm just asking, who did he go for? Now, dude, we all know the answer. Due to circumstances, it was Harvey Dent, the man who
Uh-huh.
was going to save Gotham, but he didn't go for Harvey. He went for Rachel, man. He went to get his boo. It just so happened that the Joker was smarter than all of them at that circumstance, man.
And Bruce was on some player hating shit too, man.
And Bruce was on some, yeah, yeah.
That's a diff. He was on some Marvin's Room type shit, bro. If we really
Uh,
keeping it a bug.
yeah, yeah, he was. Well, let's go with someone we all love too. Let's go with Cap. Cap
Oh
went
yeah,
back. He got with Peggy Carter. You know what I'm
yeah, he
saying?
did.
He got mission done, mission accomplished, and shit. He went back and lived the life that he wanted to with her.
Listen, man, I'm taking back the shield. I'm taking the hammer, and I'm taking the Infinity Stone. And y'all not gonna see me again.
Yeah.
What he tell Sam? He said, "Nah, I think I'll keep that to myself."
Yeah, he's nah. I don't think I will. He's like, Sam was like, you gonna tell us how you can tell what you did? He's like, nah, I don't think I will.
So yes, if we talking about selfishness, all of that is understandable. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Uh, with her saying I'll never love again, and all of that, like, I mean, yeah, it was corny as a motherfucker, but it's understandable.
Mhm.
Between 1980 and World War I, we're literally talking about 50 plus years. So of course somebody would be selfish. You know what I'm saying?
right, right. I mean, that was the whole reason why you're even in that predicament. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a huge part of your life, right
And
there.
and if we're talking about context here, the era of the 1980s. You know what I'm saying? I'm not an
Mm.
80s kid. We're both 90s kids, but what we both know about the 80s, based off of what we know about history, culture, movies that came out of the 80s, everything about that decade in history boils down to overindulgence, hedonism, and selfishness. So
Yeah,
it is not outside of the realm of reality that you know what I'm saying people was looking out for themselves. The entire theme of that movie is that you can't cheat to get what you want. Getting what you want comes at the expense of something else. If you get the one thing that you want in life, there's something that you're going to have to give up, whether that be your power, the relationship with your children, your humanity, the way other people look at you, somebody else
Right.
potentially losing their life. Something, there's a cost that has to be paid. And I do
Right.
think that over time, I hope that the overall theme of this movie is not something that gets swept under the rug, because I do like that that's one of the more highlighted parts of that movie. I do appreciate that that's something that they didn't sweep under the rug. But do you feel like the experience as it relates to that movie would feel different if you were able, well, you went to the theater to see it anyway, right?
Yeah, I went to the theater.
If that was more catered to a live action experience, do you think that some of the criticisms, like the special effects and some of these other things, do you think those criticisms wouldn't be as loud or wouldn't matter as much if, this was a first, if this movie was still out within its first run in theaters, do you think that the reception would be different? Because I do personally. I feel like it'd be a little bit different.
Hmm. Would this movie be? I still think, knowing how the internet works, knowing how people reacted to the Last Jedi, I think it would be relatively the same. I think you'd have more positives than you would have more people praising it than currently with it streaming and being in theaters theatrically released. I think it still would be overwhelming negative, even if it was theatrically released.
Wow.
I think 84 would have been dubbed as the loser, and people would have praised Black Widow on Marvel's side.
Oh
I think
wow. That's
I think Black Widow would have
oh
been crowned champ this past box office summer in an alternative reality where Thanos snapped COVID away. And
that's a
I
heavy statement right
I
there.
think that's just my opinion. I think people would have championed Black Widow and Marvel and saying this is how you do it. And DC, you fuck ups, you keep fucking up your movies and cancel Wonder Woman 3. We don't want Wonder Woman anymore. And I I think that probably might have been the route, in my opinion. What do you think, man?
Well, see, this is my thing here, right? I'm not gonna say that you're wrong, because I think it all comes down to how cards would have been played under a different set of circumstances. The expectations were not high for a Black Widow live action movie. That was almost like a happy accident. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? That's like in baseball where, you know what I'm saying, in baseball where your leadoff hitter already is averaging, you know what I'm saying, a 285 batting average with, you know what I'm saying, your leadoff hitter already has a 285 batting average with 15 home runs and 40 RBIs, you know what I'm saying, going into the All-Star break. But in one particular game, they hit a leadoff home run in the top of the first inning. You know what I'm saying? Your cleanup hitter, who's averaging 300 with 25 home runs and 50 RBIs before the All Star break, might have more strikeouts than your leadoff man, right?
Right.
So when your leadoff man hits that home run at the top of the first inning, but still ends up going 4 for 5 with 3 RBIs in one game, it looks like they're better than your cleanup man. But at the end of the day, your cleanup man is hitting in the fourth spot for a reason, right? You don't necessarily have the same level of expectations for your leadoff man than you do for your cleanup man, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
agree with what you're saying. I agree 100% with what you're saying. The general consensus would have been that Black Widow would have came out as the consensus better film because of lower expectations and because of a better track record from the guys across the street. I still never cared to see Black Widow live action. It's more of a testament to Kevin Feige and the MCU and Scarlett Johansson for making that character matter. But I don't give a fuck about Black Widow. I mean, bro, like, if we really gonna be honest, this is the same
Uh,
character. This is the same character. This is the same character within a series of three movies between Winter Soldier, Age of Ultron, and Civil War made three different turns. She went from being a good guy to a bad guy back to a good guy in a matter of three movies, and nobody really cared. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, yeah,
one of
that's
the
true.
one of the scenes that still kind of pisses me off is when you know what I'm saying, when she played T'Challa with no get back. Like,
Oh
she
yeah, she didn't get
she
no. Yeah, she didn't get anything for that.
with no repercussions. She really got one over on T'Challa, and T'Challa let that shit slide because he was already the king of Wakanda. But that's a different conversation. But anyways, I agree with that. If this came out in theaters, I don't. I think the scales might have been a little bit more balanced, but I still feel like the reception would have been a little bit more negative because at this current time, the level of expectations versus what the intent behind some of this content isn't balanced the way that it should be anymore. Everybody wants something that's going to change the game when sometimes you're just looking to get the W and move on to the next one. But that's just the age that we live in now. Everybody wants something to be perfect, and when it's not, it's the worst thing ever.
Damn, that's that. I tell you what, man. I got a feeling the way Wonder Woman would have been viewed in comparison to Black Widow would be how that all female scene in the Endgame was in comparison to Girls Get It Done on the Boys season 2. Now
Yeah.
this is real female empowerment. This is now this is how you do a female action sequence,
Right.
not that forced shit. Like it would have been
And
same
bro,
shit.
like, if we're gonna be honest, they were both great scenes. They were both great scenes in terms of what those particular movies and TV shows were looking to do. You know what I'm saying? In one
Mm,
instance, you seen the culmination of all of these female characters getting their moment in the sun, which you knew they were gonna get. And in the opposite
hmm
scene, you seen one female character getting cleaned up by other female characters as she should have been doing. But
Right.
not everything is always going to be in direct competition or, to make the other thing look less than. But digress. Like, share, subscribe.